technology is in every single mouth of any CEO. And the thing is that in today's digital age, technology is no longer confined to the IT department. It's kind of woven into the fabric of every single role, from marketing and sales to customer service and even some janitorial stuff. This constant presence that I'm going to be calling the tech omnipresence raises a crucial question. Who owns the responsibility for technology in this modern workplace? Is this IT team that is expected to be the tech wizards for everyone? Well, I don't have the real answer. That's why I have invited Jim Stevenson, who is a pundit of strategy, transformation, and growth, to answer that question. Jim is the founder and CEO of Bletchley Group, an international growth consultancy. And Jim, I'm really glad that we got already to interact and discuss a little bit about certain commonalities, certain passions that we have. Thank you very much for making it today, Jim.
No, thank you for having me, Ivan. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I think the topic is fascinating and one I've been pondering for several months, if not several years now. So I'm very glad to be here and chatting with you.
Thanks, Jim. So my first question would be, so this rise of technology that has drastically changed the landscape of responsibility, kind of, in the workplace over the past decade. How do you see it? How did it happen? So is it really happening that this change of responsibility, is it still IT that owns any decision in the corporate world?
I think it's a real challenge, but I think the change hasn't really been happening over the last few years. I think the change has been happening for decades now. I'm old enough to go back, and while I didn't code, I do remember COBOL. And COBOL was the common business object language, which his whole intent was to allow business users without a technical background to develop things. And I think that's been the promise that we've had for, what, 40 or 50 years now since COBOL came, but it's never happened. And I've actually written an article on this topic, which I think is being published in Forbes in a few weeks. But for me, we're now at a pivotal point where this has to happen. We have to have technology omnipresence, as you put it, and I love that term, by the way. We have to have it. Technology is the DNA of all companies now. For me personally, I've spoken for the last 20 years about how every company is a technology company. You're a retailer, you sell sweaters and trousers and things. No, you're an e-commerce company, and it just happens that your product is sweaters and trousers. Your Google email, there's most companies today are in a digital world, or digital enabling, or technology enabling. And yet we still have this problem. So the responsibility within the workplace question that you asked, we still have this problem that technology is viewed as an enabling technology. And I believe, and one of the challenges I make to most technology leaders is, I believe technology leaders like that. They're below the parapet. They're not responsible for revenue. They're not responsible for driving profitability. What they are responsible for is delivering project A, B, and C. And that's easy. There's no revenue there. There's no metrics there. But if you're a technology-enabled business, as all businesses are, technology people need to start stepping up. They need to start taking responsibility. And that underlying, we just help with the technology, has to fundamentally change in cultures and workplaces, because we're all technology now. And it's only getting more and more prevalent with the advent of AI.
Jim, that drives me the question. So let's be provocative for a while.
Oh, go on then.
Do we need an IT department? Now, you mentioned AI. Today, if I want, I can ask Gemini or ChatGPT some questions that can make me understand something or make a choice. So do I take this technology or the other technology? What is the difference? Pricing, structure. So do we need an IT department, or do we need people who just knows how to use technology and dreams about it, so that now it is easier to build apps or to build big software? And by the way, even big software, I have the impression that at one moment, these SAP, Salesforce of the world are going to be going away. What is your take on that?
I completely agree. I think it's what's the time scale for this? I think we're in a transitionary period at the moment. We have ChatGPT and Gemini and other large language models. I did hear the term large task model, which is very much where Apple are coming to the whole Apple intelligence thing. So it's not just asking questions now, it's actually asking for generative AI to do tasks. And at
Mm.
that point, a lot of functions will go away, and business users will just be able to do the belief of COBOL. Business users can just do something simple, and the technology will take over. So I think we're getting there. I personally am very bullish. I think that's coming much quicker than most people believe. Most people, I think, still think it's 10, 15, 20 years away, and I don't. I think we're a matter of 3, 4, 5 years. We're just not there. However, there are some challenges to that mindset, and then I'll come back to your organization question because I think that's quite important as well. The challenges with that whole time period are, at the moment, AI uses a lot of energy, and that's a challenge. Although Google have optimized their AI significantly, so they believe and they can do a large language query as cost effective in energy terms as a normal Google search, which is interesting. And then you've got the whole chip and the whole technology and everything else that's happening with it. And that's going to be a constraint as we go forward until we move the entire IT infrastructure over to these models. But from an organizational point of view, I think the challenge is how do you get the ability for people to do IT without an IT team? And that's ultimately what it comes down to. And I think there'll always be someone there. There has to be. We can automate a lot on your computer, but ultimately your computer goes through all the different layers that you see from your interaction down to the kernel of the operating system. We still need someone who's going to be able to write the kernel of the operating system and several of the layers above that for a long time to come. So I completely agree with your challenging and provocative question. I don't think we need an IT department either, but I think it's going to be a few years yet until we get there. But that for me is exciting. How many people can genuinely say they lived in a period where fundamentally entire industries, the entire commerce of the world is changed? We're in the middle of it now, and I don't think people recognize we're in the middle of that now.
So, Jim, I was even just thinking loud. Imagine that even technology suppliers or technology consultants may not be that required. And that's what I like about the definition of your company, Bletchley, is that you are a transformation consultancy. You are not a technology slash consultant. Because imagine, like, if we have a powerful AI, this story is about selling, I don't know, integrations between different systems, APIs, or whatever you want to call it. I love that word. I never understood what it means, but anyways, that consultancy groups charge 8,000 minimum or whatsoever, even though if they take them 1 hour or 2 hours. Anyways, that could be done by AI. So do we really need these IT consultants even?
Well, I hope so, because otherwise I'm redundant and I'm lying on a beach. But no, I do. I genuinely agree with you. So there's a couple of things in there. One, I named my company after Bletchley Park, because that's where the Alan Turing created the bomb and the first programmable computer and things. And when we started out, we were an IT consultancy, but we evolved into strategy and transformation because of the value that adds. But going back to the change and how those things are happening, I think it's an interesting concept of, do we need people? And again, I think that's part of the journey that AI is going to take us on. I can see for the next 3, 5 years, what we're going to have is augmented intelligence. So AI won't change us, but what you'll have is you'll have Microsoft Copilot on the side of your screen helping you along and making things quicker and easier and giving you some interesting insights as you go. And then at some point, once we've got the general AI that is the nirvana of everyone, at that point, it will start taking over a lot of tasks. But I think in the same way as 25 years ago, Google arrived and suddenly marketing changed, advertising changed. I think AI will bring with it a significant number of new roles that we can't even imagine today. So I'm less worried that I'm going to be lying on the beach for too long, although I am looking forward to lying on the beach at some point. I think the fundamental tasks that people do will change in the same way as it did when the internet came along 25, 30 years ago.
Mm. According to you, what are the biggest challenges in organizations in terms of managing technology and its impact on employees? I mean, taking into consideration that technology these last years, I mean, you need to cope with the changes. You need to learn new stuff. And I mean, I'm bringing my observations of my previous corporate life. Some of the IT department guys, I'm pretty sure that they were still programming in COBOL, man,
Pretty
if I
much.
may.
Yeah.
I'm joking, but I didn't find that they were in the front line of real technology. It was very often the business who was bringing them, hey, I heard about that. Can we use it? And then they start moving around. But in fact, I would have expected that these are the guys who are filling us with stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, no, completely. And just going back to your comment about AI, I worked with a company, I'll say a retailer, I'm not going to say their name, but every Christmas they sold £30 million worth of turkeys at Christmas. And the system that coordinated all of that was an old mainframe system. So it was written in COBOL. They didn't have access to the source code. And so they were just hoping it never broke. And I was like, you just need to bite the bullet and change that system, guys. But yeah, I mean, technology is changing. And there is one stat, and I've not proven this stat. I've not gone away and checked it, so that I may be wrong. But I did read one stat that said less than 2% of people in the UK, don't know about other companies, currently use ChatGPT or another AI on a daily basis. So even if that's 10 or 15%, the vast majority of people still aren't accessing AI in a meaningful way. So we've got a long way to go before we get there. So we are at the very start of this. But how it's changing employees, how you work with your employees, how you get your employees up to speed on all of these technologies. I think that's always been a challenge. And to be honest, I think most companies do it badly. There's always been the split between the business people and the technology people, and I don't know what the technology people do, and the business people are just making stupid decisions because they don't know what technology is. And that's just been an ongoing thing in every corporate environment I've ever seen. But distributed ownership and things like that helps with that significantly as it comes. But how you engage with your employees, a little anecdote for you, and I'm sure you've heard this before. The CFO goes to the CEO and says, what if we train all of our staff and they leave tomorrow? And the CEO says, what if we don't train them and they stay? You have to be training your people. You just have to. I remember when I was at the Guardian newspaper, we ran a week-long mini MBA for the executive team because we were implementing product and the concept of product and product management and how that works. And most of the leadership team, they couldn't buy into it because they didn't understand what it was. And the digital director at the time, Tanya Cordray, who was awesome, she decided the best way to do it would be to take the leadership team out of the building for a week and have a mini MBA. And it didn't just go through product, it went through the entire life cycle. It went through how you do things, how you test and learn, the concept of why you do this, the concept of how product is different to traditional project management and why it's better. And she took the entire team. And a week later, all the executives came back and went, we now understand what you guys are doing is amazing. We want to support you. We want to help you. But it's the same for your junior members of the team. You need to be building them up. You need to be allowing them to grow. You need to be looking after their career. And it's changing slightly in the gig economy, but nonetheless, you still have to be doing this because otherwise you're going to get substandard people coming in that don't understand what you want to do, don't understand how you're going to operate. And my experience is people will stay with you longer. They will be happier with you. You don't need to pay them over benchmark. You just need to pay them a good salary and treat them nice, train them, give them empowerment, give them that inspiration. And you've got a really impressive workforce. So you should be doing all of this anyway. It just becomes very heightened when we start talking about technology and new technology and technology driving businesses.
Hmm. tell me one thing. Let's imagine that you have like a magic wand and you want to design the perfect head of technology for a company.
Yes.
Let's think that this is a Fortune 500 company. So you have this magic wand that you want to design. So what characteristics this person have to be ready for today? Like traits, skills, maybe even what he has studied. How do you imagine this person? Because it has changed quite a lot, right? In the past,
Yeah.
maybe it was even necessary to know a little bit of coding. Today, really, do you need it?
I'm going to be really controversial then. And again, I've written an article about this previously as well. But for me, the head of technology is your CEO. Technology should be across the entire organization, and therefore the person that's running the entire organization is your CEO. That's not going to happen very soon. I get the fact that legacy still exists and you need people who understand the business and things. So when I say the head of technology is your CEO, the CEO is also your head of marketing, your head of customer service, the head of your product development and everything else. But I don't think going forward, you can just say, I don't understand technology, that's someone else's job. The CEO needs to own it and understand it. But the good thing about that is he doesn't need to be able to write code anymore. In fact, I used to write code. You don't want me writing code. Code effectively is changing. There's new libraries, there's new ways of doing things, there's new systems, there's new logic, there's new architectures coming out every 2 or 3 months. You cannot keep up with it all. And therefore, what I bring to the party, and I think this is good for most technology leaders or business leaders thinking about technology, is an understanding of logic. How logically is this hanging together? What does this bit do that then passes to that bit, that then passes to that team to manipulate the data in this way, to service the customer in this way? Customer centristic. Everyone needs to be looking at customers. And I find it bizarre that so many departments are remote from the customer. I get the fact you don't want them talking to the customer, but the only person that adds money into your business, unless you've got an investor, in which case that doesn't really count, the only person that's adding money to your business is your customers. So your salary and everyone else's salary is coming from what the customers are giving you. Everyone needs to be customer centric. Data. And again, you do not need to understand the detail of data. What you need to understand is the data accurate? Does it have integrity? Is it right? What does that piece of data mean at this point of time? And is data at a point of time what I'm looking for? Or am I looking for a series of data which tells me a trend over time? So some fundamentals around about data and how that means, because if you're not data driven, and I don't think you should be a slave to data, but you need to be data driven. You need to understand it. You need to follow it. You need to have access to it. You need to be able to manipulate it and make something useful from it to give you an informed decision. The data doesn't always give you the decision. It should only be informing your decision. So yeah, the last one, commercial. There is so many business technology leaders who are not commercial. They do not understand it. And a fundamental flaw in most engineering technology teams is they are viewed as a cost center, which means every year you go through the budgeting cycle and the CFO comes along and says, I need to do all the same stuff, but you've only got 10% less of your budget because you're a cost cycle. And I want my cost to be as low as I can, but I want you to maintain the service. Technology teams need to work alongside product teams predominantly, but they need to be viewed as a profit center. If I invest $1 into that technology team, I get $5 back in 6 months' time. And suddenly that fundamentally changes what teams do, how they prioritize their work, how they interact with the business, the culture of the organization, because the whole organization becomes a bit more technology enabled and understanding. So those for me would be the really key things that I would want to see technology teams in leadership anyway address more regularly. Is the commercial, the data, the customer centricity, culture, those types of things. It's too easy just to get caught in front of a screen and think, oh, there's ones and zeros, that's me, I'm happy.
You know, the part that there are two things that I really, really like is the one about customer centricity. You made me think that back in my days, so I'm an engineer, so I know a little bit about technology. One of my first jobs was in technology. And I can remember clearly the first time that I saw a customer that it was maybe 6 or 7 months after landing that job. um, I was so happy. It's like I understood finally what it was all about, because before that I was the young guy with a big mouth in a big corporation, and suddenly I could understand really the challenges. So I remember that the head of a region took me to a meeting to explain how B2B e-commerce work. And just because I attended that 3 hours meeting that was a little bit boring, I understood the value of what I was doing. And I was doing it better because then I found meaning on my dull job.
And it's meaning, but for me personally, once you go beyond the first and second and third meeting, it's empathy. It's like, I didn't realize the fact that because we do this, your life to buy our product is harder. I never realized that. But now I realize your motive of why you engage with this company, why you're working with us. I see why our logical process doesn't work in that scenario. So Clay Christensen put together the Jobs to be Done framework. And I love that because it is so customer centric. It's, what is the job I'm trying to do? And therefore, as a company, how do I help you do that job? How do I help you make that task? How do I make it easy? Do I have a one button buy now thing? Do I have something that takes you through a bit more of a process to help you with the learning and the research of the product? But once you get into that customer centricity of understanding what your customers are trying to do, and your job is to make it easy for them to give you money, then the whole thing is a game changer.
But by the way, what is your feeling? Because I'm always like a little bit too critical this about IT. So I have a little bit of experience seeing like in certain corporations that they are still using the typical project management style instead of using Agile, or even using the JTB, the jobs to be done, as a part of the development. They are still using this 25 pages of describing the project that is going to be delivered in 18 months or whatsoever. Is there still a big share of companies who are doing that?
You're trying to get me in trouble now, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I
You
invited
are.
you.
I I I have to say I'm a huge advocate of the Agile Manifesto. And I hate the word manifesto. It has a connotation for me, and I just don't like it. But the principles of it, I love. I genuinely do. I think every organization, every team in every department, every organization should read those manifesto lines, the four of them, and they should start implementing them for themselves. So I hate it. And very often I'll go into a client and talk about transformation, and they'll talk about Agile, and they'll talk about how they have a Scrum, and they'll talk about how they do stand-ups, and they've got a sprint board, and it's like, great, okay, so you understand Agile. And then what you learn is actually, no, they use the terminology of Agile, but they're still waterfall. And that for me is just the worst of all worlds, because you're pretending. You think you're getting benefits that you're not getting, and you're just not getting the true benefits. And this is where I'm going to get in real trouble. But there's frameworks out there. You've heard of SAFe. There was one called Rage, which I don't think is very popular anymore. SAFe seems to be the one. And SAFe uses all of the Agile terminology, but in principle, an underlying concept is still command and control. It's still traditional project management. But it's agile, and it's got the word agile in it. And as a technology leader, or as a business leader that doesn't understand why you would want to empower your people, and you're nervous about empowering your people, it's kind of safe. It's what it says. It's a safe process. I can have control, but we're still agile, so it's all good. And what they've forgotten is the fact that the genuine power of agility, big A with the process, or small a as a concept, is that you're empowering people. You're telling people what you need to achieve and allowing them to go away and do it. And you have to be brave, because sometimes your people will fail. And that's okay, because in failing, they've learned. So when you say to them, how can we fix that now? They say, well, we've failed twice. Now we're off and running. We know exactly what we need to do to fix this, and give us another month and we're done. There was an anecdote, and again, I don't know this is true, but I do love it. It was an employee of IBM in this anecdote. I'm not sure it's true, but we'll say IBM. Employee of IBM goes into the CEO and says, "I'm really sorry, but I've made a mistake. It's cost us $600,000. Obviously, I'll resign. I just wanted to personally say I'm sorry." And the CEO said, "Why would you resign? I've just spent $600,000 to train you and give you a lesson. Why would I want you to go to one of my competitors and take that learning to them?" And it's true. We all make mistakes. You have to embrace the mistake and accept the learning that comes from it and share the learning. But most people don't like that. It's not a very not a very kind of comfortable place to be. So the default into these using terminology of Agile, using a safe framework, as opposed to genuinely empowering your people to go away and do what you need them to do. Give them the objective. This is why I love OKRs. Give them the objectives. Tell them how you're going to be measured with the key results. I want you to go away and in 3 months' time improve our website conversion by 5%. Very simple. It's very clear. That team knows exactly how they're going to be measured. They know exactly what they're trying to do, how they get there. Why would I be telling you how to do that? That's your job. I just want to tell you as a business, we need to improve our conversion. Our conversion is not good. It dropped last year, whatever it is. Your task as a team is in the next 3 months, increase it by 5%. And my personal experience, most teams fail when you give them that task, but most teams get to 4.5% increase in conversion. So they've failed with the 5, but they've moved you significantly further forward than you were. Whereas if I come up and say, I think conversion's bad, can we do A, B, and C? Yeah, we're going to get 0% towards the goal of increasing 5%, because I'm not close enough to it. I don't know that you have to empower the teams to do these things. So I love Agile. I love that whole Scrum ban. If you do want to look at a framework which helps, because you do need a framework, I'm a fan of the LESS framework, so large scale Scrum. But SAFe, I get very frustrated with SAFe. I understand why people do it. I understand why SAFe exists, but it breaks the Agile manifesto and it doesn't empower your people. And that's where the benefit comes.
I empathize somehow with people who have the challenges to embrace Agile, because as human beings, we like predictability. We like to know that this project starts here and it finishes in 8 months.
Yeah.
And then we start biasing, because we are human, and expecting that because we wrote these requirements, we're going to be successful. So we don't think anymore about the risk of that the project to fail because we did the wrong assumptions at the beginning. But that's human beings. So this Agile at the beginning, people are a little bit resistant because say, yeah, but we don't know when we are going to finish. And the budget, we don't know how much is going to be, but it's going to work. People are going to be using it.
For me, the fundamental flaw in all of that is, do you want to control your costs or do you want to drive your revenue? And far too often, businesses go into a 12-month finance cycle, and the chief finance officer says, you've got X amount of budget to do this amount of scope. And what we're too hung up on is the cost. And I'm not suggesting that there's unlimited money anywhere, but you can prioritize. And the prioritization is how you control your budgets and how you control what you're spending on. But a key part of the prioritization isn't what it's going to cost me. It's what value do I get by delivering on it. And as long as I get 3, 4, 10 times more value than I cost, why are you going to stop me doing it because we've got a fixed budget this year? Let me go away and do what I need to do, because that's what's going to drive your business forward. And it's that stop micromanaging costs and start managing value and revenue and growth.
I still think very often about these SAP consultants back in the 2000s. They were making a huge lot of money because they were implementing stuff that was lasting like 2 years with an unpredictable outcome. And then the corrections had to be done by other SAP consultants. What the hell?
Yeah, completely. There was there was a Gartner framework that I saw probably 15, 20 years ago now called the PACE framework. And what that said was the way you operate your technology should change depending on what type of system it is that you're doing. So if it's your finance system, it's a system of record. You shouldn't be changing that every 5 years. That should be rock solid. That should be something that is just core to your business, because every time you change that, there's a cost. You're changing the data. You might make mistakes, so suddenly your reporting is bad 1 year because you changed your system and it all went wrong or whatever it is. So there's a huge risk, there's a huge cost. So get a system you're happy with, rock solid, make it work. There's then the systems in the middle, I forget what they're called, where you want to be doing some tinkering with, but not a lot. It's kind of like the business analysis and the business rules section. And then there's the front end, the systems of innovation. They
Yeah.
should be changing every day. You should be playing with those. You should be learning from those. You should be testing those. You should have 15 different tests, A/B tests on your homepage to see what works, what doesn't work, and they should be constantly evolving. And I think most people misunderstand. They put technology in one big bucket and it's all technology and we all want to do the same thing. And why can't I change my finance system to do this? And I want to do it tomorrow and you need to do it quicker. And it's like, well, we can do that, but the risk is huge. Why would we? Let's play with the front end, because that's where we drive revenue. That's where we drive value for our customers. That's how we encourage our customers to give us more money. And let's forget about the IT system for the finance system for today. We'll worry about that in 5 years' time.
You made me think about, I think somewhere I read that back in 2003, Amazon was, they were calling it experiments. They were experimenting with the front page around 100 times per day. Today, we are close to the million of times of small experimentation, A/B testing anywhere in the world. Nobody has the same page of Amazon. We are talking about Amazon, just a single web page. So why can't we do that?
The example I heard, and this was when I was working at the Guardian, and we were trying to implement the same types of processes. Was, I think it was eBay at any one time had between 30 and 40 A/B tests on their homepage. And you're right. But I think, going back to our conversation earlier about AI, we're getting into a world whereby actually, if you've got 1 million customers, you've got 1 million homepages. AI can operate at that speed. It can give everyone a personalized homepage. It can give everyone a personalized advert. You can understand through there. I have to say, at the moment, and it is changing, rather than generative AI, I'm still a much bigger fan of predictive AI, because I think you get the ROI of predictive AI more than you get the ROI of generative AI today. Give it 6-12 months, that'll change. But with AI, generally predictive or generative, you can understand my buying patterns, you can understand my motives, you can understand my history. You can then start to actually serve things to me as an individual. And that means that you've got 1 million customers, you've got 1 million homepages.
That's totally true. I want to stay a little bit because I've been diverting because I got excited about the philosophy behind Agile. I like processes, by the way, even though I portray myself as idea generator, I like processes too.
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
I wanted to ask you, so how can companies can empower the regular employees, non-IT, to become more tech savvy? Let's consider the common situation when there is an IT person discussing with a business person. The business person, especially if he's a marketeer, he will come with some incredible dream where they don't even have an idea if this is a cost a lot, or I want to have an avatar that is floating and speaking in natural language, and my budget is 5K.
Yeah.
For instance, I'm pretty sure that has happened any time of your.
Every day in life somewhere, yes.
So how can we empower these employees to become more tech savvy? How can we make them learn the right things?
I love this because, and again, I think this is part of corporate world that is in such a transition at the moment. So traditionally, I would have said what you want to do is you want to teach and learn and showcase and demonstrate value to business employees of technology. So, for example, I'm running online workshops or lectures or webinars. At The Guardian, we used to have every Friday afternoon at between 4 and 5, we had a product demo day. And that's where we demo everything we'd done that last sprint 2 weeks. And anyone could come from the CEO. In fact, we've very often told the CEO that he had to come to show willing and kind of be there and make it acceptable for other people to kick the whole thing off. But what we also then did was once a month, we'd change that and we'd actually have a guest lecturer. So the Guardian's a news organization. We had the global director of news at Google come over and he presented to an hour and everyone came to that show. But he was telling us not just how news organizations work, how news organizations work online, how the technology was enabling news organizations to work online. So they were learning about technology and they didn't even realize it. And that then encouraged them to come to the next demo day that we had so that actually they could start to understand what we were doing to get there. So you use that inspiration, you do that. I used to work with News Corp in the UK, and we had a bunch of guys, and to be honest, I think we were moving our server farm. We had a bunch of guys from AWS come over. I forget what the guy's name was, but he was really high up in Amazon. And he came over and he spent 2 or 3 days with us, including an afternoon of just Q&A, just kind of, he was in a room, there was a lecture theatre kind of type environment. People could just go up and chat to him, shake his hand, ask him questions. And suddenly that made the whole thing less of a challenge. So you can do all of those things, absolutely. About a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have said the answer to all of this is not how do you make your business people more technology savvy. I would have said that the issue is making your technology people more business savvy. So business people have chosen to be business people. They didn't choose to be IT people. So you need to get your IT people to understand your business and become more commercial, because the business people are never going to do that. They're not. If they had that type of motivation, they would be sitting in the IT department in the old days being a super user. I've not got a computer degree, but I'm really passionate. I want to help. So I think there's various ways of it. But I think going forward at this point, I think technology is becoming that we are getting close to having the promise of COBOL, of technology that common business users can actually use and do meaningful things with. So I think a couple of years, that whole problem is going to fundamentally have changed.
I like this idea. In fact, it is quite inspiring to say, in fact, instead of going through an e-learning or talking directly about technology, talk about real problems solved by technology so that people can understand. And when you have this real physical experience where you can ask questions to someone, it's even better because maybe I mean, I heard an acronym that I didn't get, so I can ask, or I can at the same time think about my own business challenges and ask questions. So how would you do that? That is amazing.
And
that's the best way to transfer.
to be honest, that you hit on a really good point there that I think is really valuable is when you're kicking off these types of programs, when you're understanding what's happening, I think it's really important that you have smart people in the room, but you prime them to ask stupid questions because that allows everyone else, it gives everyone else permission to ask a stupid question. The smart guy in the room didn't understand what that acronym meant and he felt confident enough to ask it. I don't know what this acronym is, so I'm going to feel okay that I can ask that question as well. So these things, and it sounds very manipulative, and it kind of is, but you're doing it for a good purpose. You're allowing people to kind of feel, I don't know, I'm the only one in the room that doesn't understand what this means. Hang on, I'm going to ask anyway. And then what you find is 80% of the people in the room didn't know what it meant, and they were all too embarrassed to ask. So yeah, you've got to kind of when you're setting up these types of programs, you've got to kind of understand human behavior and allow people and engage with them and have a few stooges in there that are asking the stupid questions to show other people that it's okay. I didn't know what that meant. And that's cool.
By the way, I have met senior leaders who have this leadership style of asking like something that looks like stupid questions. Why are we doing that? On that style, but they I mean, they were the most impressive for me because really by questioning already, why do we need promoters for this? What is the value? Then you could understand it. You can challenge something that you thought that it was normal to have. And that was a
And
very nice.
to be honest, another extension to that is I remember early on in my career, I had a really smart boss actually. And you'd kind of think, I'm a smart guy, I'm cool. I have to present to the boss. So you kind of go in and present to the boss and you're thinking, I've done everything perfectly. Just don't ask me this one question. I don't have an answer. Don't ask me, don't ask me, don't ask me, don't ask me. What was the one question you got asked? And I was like, oh man. And then suddenly you learn actually that it's okay not to have all the answers.
Hmm.
I've done all of this work. I've got 99% of what you're trying to achieve done. Be upfront. This 1% thing, we've not managed to get an answer to it yet. That's fine. We'll come back to you next week. But it's just that kind of maturity almost of we're all human, we're all fallible, we all make mistakes, we don't have all the answers. Sometimes there's going to be something that's really simple that everyone in the world knows that I don't, but I'm never going to learn if I don't ask. So that's cool. I'm happy with that. Everyone had to learn somewhere.
Exactly. What's your take about? So I'm still thinking about these organizations that optimize tech-driven culture in an organization. So, and you are pretty familiar, certainly, about these certain tech companies organize themselves into projects or teams that they call squads or whatsoever, tribes. They have funny names. Should there be in an organization like team project teams that where there is a tech guy who knows a tech savvy guy, or should it be centralized? Like there is a hub where you come for questions, or every project should have like a tech guy who knows what he's talking about.
I would go beyond a tech guy and I would say there should be a tech team. So I'm fully into distributed ownership, but one guy into a project isn't going to make a difference. So I would put the tech team. So you may have a front end developer, you may have a back end developer, you may have a QA, but then you're also going to have a product manager and two business people, and then maybe even a lawyer or an accountant or a compliance person, depending on the industry you're in. And what you then do is you challenge that team as a whole to achieve a business objective for you. So say it's conversion. Say we used that example earlier on. You challenge that team to how do I convert better 5% in the next 3 months? You've got the engineering there, you've got the compliance there, you've got a lawyer there to make sure that you're not kind of marketing it some way. You may have a marketing person in that team as well. So I very much create distributed teams, function teams, product teams, whatever you want to call them, that have an ownership of part of the business. And it could be lead generation, it could be conversion, it could be loyalty, it could be customer service or fulfillment and handling, or how you split your business up. But you have a team, and that team comprises some technology, some business, compliance, marketing. And the way I've always done it is you have a core team, their full-time job is this one part of the business, conversion. That allows them to understand the domain. It allows them to understand what worked last time and what doesn't work this time, so, as opposed to creating a project team that's learning every time you start something new. They've got that domain knowledge already built in. Equally, if they produce something for you that fixes your 5% conversion, but it's got lots of bugs in it, it doesn't quite work, there's this bit that's hanging together with sellotape, they're the team that the next week have to go away and fix that because they own it. They own the whole thing. So they own the quality throughout it, they own the customer experience throughout it, they own the business metrics and the business objectives. And that's the core team. And it may be that they don't need a full-time marketing person or a full-time compliance person. So you split the compliance and the marketing or whichever other functions, and they become part of the team for 25%. 25% of that person's time is helping this team improve conversion as it goes. So they know, and I don't think you can split people too much. I think you can split them into 2 or 3 teams, maybe
Yeah.
4. But that one marketing person is covering these 3 areas. And they're a consultant into that team. They go to the team stand-ups, they go to the team's organization structure, they report to the team, they're the team reports to the board on its progress, and it's the team that does it. So I'm a huge, huge believer in the power of a team over the power of individuals. And the power of an individual is I'm the project manager. I'm taking responsibility for all of this. I'm taking the credit for all the work that you guys have done because I'll present it to the board and it was my team that did it. No, it was the team that did it, and the team should be allowed to take the credit for it. They act as a team, they succeed as a team, they fail as a team, they fix the problems as a team, they move forward as a team. And that for me is one of the most powerful things that organizations can understand.
This model of having a specialty, but working in different challenges accelerates the experience, the knowledge, the gut feeling, whatever you want to call it, in a 10x. I have seen it live. Like people who have been moving around teams in parallel, and as you said, it has to be limited to 2 or 3 during a period of time. It's incredible how much knowledge they acquire, and almost like they learn from each other quicker because it's a small team. It's not like the distance is not. So how does it work? You can ask it across the table.
I went into a retailer in the UK, and they were having a lot of challenges. They just spent a lot of money moving off of the Amazon platform and building their own platform for their e-commerce stuff, and it wasn't quite working. They were concerned it wasn't working, so they asked me to go in and have a look, and I went and had a look, and they weren't convinced. So I took and I created effectively a small Skunksworks team within the team that was doing it, and I mean they were spending 200 million doing this move, and they weren't sure it was going to have the business objective results that they wanted. So I took, it was 6 of their team. We did 4 2-week sprints. So 6 people, 8 weeks. And we picked on the iPad experience. And the iPad was 30% of the revenue online. So it was about 300 million revenue. The iPad was a 30% of that. So we did some user testing at the start. We knew it wasn't going to be good, but we could prove, because we did user testing at the start of the process, that if they went live with what they had, conversion would drop by 1%. That was 3 million annualized. So 6 people, 8 weeks, 4 2-week sprints. We tested again at the end of the process, and we could prove that conversion would increase by 1%. So a 2% difference from what they had to what we did. 6 people in 8 weeks, annualized, made them 6 million in revenue. At that point, they bought in. They just bought the whole thing. This works. We don't quite understand why it works, but we know it works. We've proven that it works by using these methods, this agile process, this test and learn, this whole kind of understanding the data and where things are going wrong, and customer journeys to identify blockers in the process. In 8 weeks, with 6 of their team, we managed to create them an extra 6 million.
And that's another advantage of small teams working in projects, because then you can experiment and be customer-centric on the go, because it is part of your duties to go and validate whatever idea you had or challenge or pain that you have imagined for your customers. You go and do it on your own. You don't have to call, let's say, marketing agency. You do it on your own. Yes.
And the beauty of that was six of their team, not my team, their team. So they'd never worked in this way before either, over 8 weeks. But then because of that, they allowed us to go away and do a much wider transformation across e-commerce. And these are not my figures. These are the figures that this company reported to the London stock market. Six months after we'd done the transformation work, the company reported to the London stock market that they had changed their e-commerce structures, which essentially was my letter of engagement, to be honest. But they changed the e-commerce team and how it operated, and they'd made an extra 116 million in 6 months. And that's how powerful these ways of working are. That's how much money companies are leaving on the table by not embracing agility, not embracing empowering teams, not changing how you're managing. It's not fundamentally changing your business, changing how you manage your business and how you treat your people. And that has a huge impact.
I love that. I'm pretty sure, Jim, that you were like super proud when there was numbers related to your project. That was like a moment.
It's the best case study in the world. I can't get a better case study, because I didn't make the number up. And it's not like the number was an internal number that you can fake and you can add a bit more on, and it was 10% better there and 5%. It was what they reported to the London stock market. It was
Yep.
a regulatory compliance thing. They had to report it. I can't make that up. So as a case study for me, it's perfect. I can prove that I did this work, and I can prove the company's result was 116 million because that's what they reported to the regulator. I mean, you just don't get it. It's just, and it proves it. It's not that I was magic. It was not that I did anything kind of fancy or anything. It was changing the mindsets, changing the culture, changing who they operate, and they needed it.
Hmm.
They went away and did it.
I'm curious, and I was expecting to ask you that question because it just came to my mind this question. Is it a thing to outsource completely the technology side of a business to give it to an external company, like hardcore technology, like this story is about servers, how to decide about what solution, and then you keep in an organization just people who are super digitally savvy. Is it a thing or is it my imagination?
I think it used to be a thing a while ago. And the company that I've just spoken to you about, they were moving off of an Amazon platform into their own platform. And their logic was Amazon got them onto e-commerce quickly and easily. So it was
Mm,
worthwhile giving Amazon the 20%, whatever it was that they got. That makes
mm.
perfect business sense. But when you start turning over 300 million on your Amazon platform, it doesn't make sense anymore. And to be honest, why would you want your biggest competitor to control your technology?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so maybe I didn't phrase it correctly, the question. So imagine a non-tech company like FMCG who wants to who would outsource their services. Does it happen or is it?
I think I'm not sure. It depends how you're defining technology and outsourcing. But I
Mm,
think there's a bunch of people that own the technology, but they outsource the management of it to TCS or any of the big KPMGs, well, not maybe not Accenture and things, to manage and run it for them.
uh-huh.
Um, I don't think there's many now. I would find it bizarre if you were in that world today. I think most of the big technology consultancies, they come in for 1, 2, 3 years to fundamentally change what you're doing and set you up for the next 5 or 10 years. I don't think they're running systems per se. I
Mm,
mean, there probably
okay.
are some. I'm just not aware of them. And if there are some out there, and you work for them, I would suggest that you go to your technology leadership and say why.
Okay.
It doesn't make any sense. Your biggest differentiator as a business going forward is how do you do your front end customer engagement things, and what is your technology strategy, especially coming into an AI world? How are you going to leverage those strategies? You do not want anyone outsourcing that aspect of it because that's how you are different to your competitors. You
Mm,
may want to outsource someone to write some code, produce a piece of software for you. But the core of that's how you differentiate your business. That's how you are a Nike rather than an Adidas.
mm.
You really don't want to be doing that stuff.
I get it. I get it. Now it looks like I have reframed my thoughts.
Yeah, fair
Jim,
enough.
we're almost ending this discussion, but I wanted to have like a key message, a key message for a CEO, let's say that. So what would you tell a CEO to in order to help him? What would you recommend so that he can keep up with to make his organization evolve with the technologies and ensure that these responsibility models remain adaptable? What would you recommend to them to do so that they have an organization that is thriving with technology, they understand it, and that they keep it adaptable?
Okay, so that's a huge question, and we could probably spend the next 3 weeks talking about it. So I'm going to give you a fairly mundane answer, but I fundamentally think this will change every organization. And it's culture. As a CEO, you have to have the right culture. And most CEOs don't even think about it. It's just something that the HR team wanted to do a project on, and yeah, we gave them some budget and they did something. But every company has a culture. The question is, did you create the culture or are you accepting the culture that was there?
Hmm,
Create your culture.
hmm,
Fundamentally, change your organization, create a culture. And the culture needs to be data driven. It needs to be innovative. It needs to be curious. It needs to be allowing people and enabling people to be empowered and to make mistakes. And those key aspects, there's a few more that you'd want to add in there, but create that culture, because once you have a culture of being data driven, it will become very obvious that you need to be in AI. That the data will tell you that that's what customers are expecting. They want a quicker response. They don't want to speak to, they will want to go on the phone to customer service and have to press 1 to speak to an agent, and 4 to, all of these things will become through in the data. But you need to create the culture that you have. And that culture is what will make you future proof. It will make you innovative. It will make you data driven. It will make you focus on your customers. It will do everything that you want your company to do, and it will build it into the DNA of the company so that you don't have to do it every day. The company does it itself. The company will evolve, and it's challenging. It's worrying. Sometimes you feel like you're losing control. I've run companies before. Sometimes you feel like you're losing control and you don't actually know what's happening on a day-to-day basis. But because you know you hired the right people, they're in the right culture, they're in the right setting to be successful, they will flag up to you if there's a challenge, if there's a problem, if they've got a blocker. Allow them to do what they're good at and go away and make you successful. And you can have a much easier life. You can focus on the bits of the job that you need to be focusing on, because you trust your people. They're empowered, they're doing the right thing. You've got the right check-in at the right point to make sure that this conversion that you're trying to drive for in 3 months' time is on the right track. It will fundamentally change your organization for the absolute better.
Jim, you made my day. So that final words are resonating 100% for me. People do not need more training. They need the right culture so that they can thrive. And that is trainable. It's not like curiosity is not like innate. You practice, you become that. But you need to enable this practice. And as you say, you need this setup of practices where if you fail, that's a lesson. People can speak up and so on. Jim, it was really, really lovely to spend. I mean, we went overboard with the timing. Just one last thing, Jim. So how can people reach you out if they need you? They need to ask questions and they find you inspiring. They want to have a chit chat with you. How can they reach you out?
Either through my website, Bletchley Group, BLETCHLEY group.com, or probably the best way is just connect to me on LinkedIn and chat there. So I'm Jim Stevenson on LinkedIn. You'll see this face on the picture. Connect with me, reach out. I'm happy to chat.
Jim, I'm definitely putting the 2 links. Thank you for this inspiring conversation, Jim. Have an excellent day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful to chat.